After months of unbearable pain, I finally visited a doctor my wife didn't choose. He reviewed my test results, then suddenly froze. His expression changed as he looked at me and asked, "Who has been treating you?" I answered quietly, "My wife. She's a doctor." His voice became serious. "We need more tests immediately. There is something inside your body that should not be there." I felt my blood run cold because for the first time, I wondered if the person I trusted most had been hiding something from me. Thank you for being here. It truly means the world. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments and let's connect. Every single one of you keeps Revenge Dad going. One small note before we begin: some details in this story have been fictionalized for storytelling and educational purposes. Names and places are not intended to represent anyone specific, but what this story teaches us absolutely matters. The waiting room smelled like fresh paint and something faintly floral lavender maybe, or one of those plug-in air fresheners that clinics buy in bulk to make patients feel calmer than they actually are. I sat in a chair near the window, a clipboard on my lap, and stared at the intake form like it was written in a language I had never learned. Primary care physician. I held my pen above that line for a long moment. Then I wrote self-managed. It was not entirely a lie. For the past 6 years, I had been managing myself heating pads for the chest tightness, extra strength ibuprofen for the fatigue that settled into my bones. By 2 in the afternoon, long walks through the neighborhood that I told myself were good for circulation, but were really just ways to get out of the house before Victoria noticed I was moving slower than the day before. My name is Daniel Carter. I am 68 years old. I spent 41 years as a structural engineer, building bridges and office towers and parking structures across Southern California. I know how to read a load-bearing diagram. I know when something is under more stress than it was designed to handle. I just never thought that something would be me. The office was on the 14th floor of a building on Lexington Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. Clean lines, neutral colors, a receptionist who smiled at me when I walked in, without the practiced brightness of someone performing a role. Dr. Samuel Hayes had no affiliation with Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. He did not know my wife. He had never been to one of her department dinners or cited one of her published papers. That was the entire reason I was here. 3 weeks earlier, my son Thomas had called me on a Tuesday night. "Dad," he said, and I could hear him choosing his words carefully, the way he always did when he was about to say something he knew I would push back on. "I need you to do something for me. And I need you to actually listen before you say no." "I always listen," I told him. "You listen to Victoria," he said. "That's different." I had almost ended the call right there. Thomas and Victoria had never found comfortable ground with each other. I had told myself for years that it was just a step-parent dynamic, the ordinary friction of a blended family that never fully blended. But Thomas pressed on. "When did you last see a doctor she didn't choose?" he asked. "When did you last get a second opinion from someone outside her circle? Dad, you've been telling me for 2 years that you feel wrong, that your chest hurts, that you can't get it through an afternoon without needing to lie down. And every time I ask what Victoria says about it, you tell me she says it's just aging." He paused. "Does that sound right to you? Does that actually sound right?" My chest had tightened when he said it, that familiar pressure, low and persistent, like someone had placed a hand flat against my sternum and was pushing slowly without urgency, the way you'd press a thumbtack into a corkboard. "I trust her," I said. "I know you do," Thomas said, and his voice cracked just slightly at the edges. "That's what scares me. I did not sleep well that night, or the night after. On the third night, the pain woke me at 2:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I stared at the clock on the nightstand for 4 full minutes while I sat on the edge of the bed, both hands pressed to my chest, breathing through my nose, waiting for it to pass. Victoria slept on beside me, her breathing slow and even. I stood up, carefully walked down the hall to the bathroom, sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the tub, and thought about what my son had said. "Does that sound right to you?" The next morning, I booked a flight to New York. I told Victoria I was going to spend a few days with Thomas, which was true, just not the whole truth. She kissed me on the cheek at the airport and told me to give Thomas her love. I nodded and walked through the terminal and did not look back. Now I sat in Samuel Hayes' waiting room and tried to remember the last time I had done anything medical without Victoria in the room. I could not remember. Not once in 28 years of marriage. The thought made my hands tremble against the clipboard, a fine, barely visible tremor that I pressed flat against my thigh until it stopped. The door to the inner office opened and a man stepped out. He was in his mid-50s with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of steady, unhurried posture that takes decades to develop. He wore dark scrubs and wire-rimmed glasses, and his name tag read, Dr. Samuel Hayes, Internal Medicine. "Mr. Carter?" he said. "That's me." I stood too quickly and felt my knees ache in protest. He held the door open and gestured inside. "Come on back. Let's take a look at what's going on." His office was smaller than I expected. A desk, 2 chairs, an examination table along one wall, a monitor mounted above a counter with a keyboard and a rolling stool. No diplomas on the wall, which I found oddly reassuring. He sat on the stool and flipped open the folder. I had couriered ahead my records from the past 6 years. The ones I had requested from Cedars-Sinai 3 weeks ago, after a 20-minute argument with the records department that had left me sweating and short of breath in my car in the parking lot of a Ralph's supermarket. Hayes read without speaking for several minutes. I sat in the chair across from him and watched his face and tried to read it the way I used to read structural assessments, looking for the small signs of stress before the visible cracks appeared. His expression did not change, but his pen stopped moving. He looked up at me over the rim of his glasses, and something in his eyes shifted. Not alarm exactly, but a careful, concentrated attention, the kind that doctors deploy when they are deciding how much to say, and in what order. "Mr. Carter," he said slowly, "who has been managing your care?" My throat tightened. "My wife," I said. "She's a physician. Internal medicine, same as you. She's been my primary care provider since we married." Hayes held my gaze for a moment that lasted slightly longer than it should have. "I see," he said. He set the pen down on the desk with a quiet, deliberate click. "I'd like to run some additional imaging today if you're agreeable. There are a few things I want to look at more closely." He paused. "I need you to stay calm, Mr. Carter. Can you do that for me?" My heart rate climbed. My palms went damp against my thighs. "What is it?" I asked. "What do you see?" Hayes folded his hands on top of the folder and looked at me steadily. "Let's get the imaging done first," he said. "Then we'll talk." The imaging took 40 minutes. I lay on a table in a room 2 doors down from Hayes' office while a technician ran a cardiac MRI, a magnetic resonance imaging scan that maps the heart and the tissue surrounding it in cross-sectional layers, like slicing through an apple and photographing every ring. The machine was loud, a rhythmic knocking that filled the room, and left no space for thinking which was either the worst possible design or the most merciful one. When it was over, I sat on the edge of the table in my paper gown and waited. My chest ached with that familiar low pressure, the same pressure I had lived with for 6 years. The same pressure Victoria had told me was nothing more than the ordinary complaint of a body growing old. Hayes came back into the room 17 minutes later. He was carrying a printed scan, a series of black and gray images clipped to a board, and he set it on the counter without looking at me first, which told me everything I needed to know about what he was about to say. "Mr. Carter," he said, pulling the rolling stool close and sitting down so that we were at eye level. "I want to show you something, and I need you to take a breath before I do." My hands gripped the edge of the examination table so hard that my knuckles ached. "Just tell me." Hayes pointed to a section of the scan, a small, dense shape lodged near the upper left quadrant of the image, distinct from the surrounding tissue. "Do you see this object here?" I leaned forward and squinted at the image. "What is that?" "It's a cardiac loop recorder," Hayes said. He kept his voice even and unhurried the way you speak to someone standing too close to the edge of something high. "It's a small monitoring device about the size of a USB drive, implanted subcutaneously just beneath the skin of the chest wall. It records cardiac rhythm continuously. In legitimate cases, it's used to detect arrhythmias that don't show up during standard EKG testing." He paused. "It requires a minor surgical procedure to place, and it requires the patient's written informed consent before that procedure takes place." I stared at the image. The small, dense shape sat there on the scan, like a period at the end of a sentence I had not known was being written. "I don't understand," I said. My voice came out rougher than I intended, scraped at the edges. "I've never had one of those put in. I would know. I would remember something like that." Hayes pulled a folder from the counter and opened it to a page I recognized the surgical consent forms from a procedure I'd had in 2019. Victoria had scheduled it after I mentioned some irregular heartbeat episodes during a physical. She called it a routine cardiac workup, an outpatient procedure in and out the same day. I had signed the forms the night before at the kitchen table while she stood beside me and pointed to each signature line. "This is the consent form from your 2019 procedure," Hayes said. He ran his finger down the page slowly. "It authorizes a diagnostic cardiac catheterization, a standard minimally invasive imaging procedure." He looked up at me. "There is no mention anywhere on this form of a loop recorder implantation, not in the procedure description, not in the risk section, not in the supplemental notes." He set the folder down. "Daniel, this device has been inside your body for approximately 6 years, and there is no documentation, not here, not in your records from Cedars-Sinai, not anywhere that you were ever told it would be placed." The room tilted. I pressed both feet flat against the floor to steady myself, feeling the cold linoleum through my socks, anchoring myself to something solid, while the rest of the world went soft and unreliable around me. "She told me it was a routine workup," I said. The words felt thick in my mouth like I was speaking through gauze. "She said I'd be home by noon." "You were home by noon," Hayes said quietly, "because the procedure itself was quick. But what happened during that procedure?" He stopped. He pressed his lips together for a moment, and I could see him choosing his next words with the care of a man diffusing something fragile. "The device has been active this entire time. It records continuously and transmits data, and the chronic inflammation it has caused, the chest pressure, the fatigue, the episodes of dizziness. You describe those are consistent with long-term irritation from an improperly disclosed implant." He leaned forward slightly. "In other words, Daniel, the symptoms your wife told you were just aging were caused by something she would have known was there." A sound came out of my chest, not a word, not quite something low and involuntary, the sound a man makes when he has been holding himself together for a very long time and feels the first seam begin to give way. My eyes burned hot and sudden, and I pressed the back of my hand against my mouth and breathed hard through my nose until the feeling passed enough for me to speak. "Can you take it out?" I asked. "Yes. It's a straightforward extraction, local anesthesia, small incision, same-day procedure. I can schedule it for Thursday." Hayes watched me carefully. "But Daniel, before we do that, I need to ask you something. Do you want to tell your wife you're here?" The question landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. Did I want to tell Victoria? I thought about the night I had sat on the bathroom floor at 2:47 in the morning, pressing my hand against my chest, while she slept 12 feet away. I thought about every morning she had looked at me across the breakfast table and said, "You're fine, Daniel. You just need to rest. You're just getting older, trust me." I thought about the consent form I had signed at the kitchen table while she stood beside me and pointed to each line. "No," I said. My voice had steadied, gone flat and certain in a way that surprised even me. "I don't want her to know I'm here." Hayes nodded slowly. "Then we proceed on Thursday. And Daniel," he hesitated, "you should consider speaking with a lawyer. What I'm describing, a medical device implanted without documented informed consent, that's not a clerical error. That's a serious violation of patient rights under federal and California state medical law." His jaw tightened slightly. "And it needs to be documented properly before anything else happens." I nodded. My hands had stopped shaking. They had gone very still the way hands do when a decision has been made that cannot be unmade. I walked out of the office and into the elevator, and down through the lobby, and out onto Lexington Avenue, where the afternoon crowd moved around me in all directions, and the traffic was loud and relentless, and the March air was cold enough to sting. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, and then I took my phone out of my pocket and called Thomas. He picked up on the first ring. "Dad." His voice was tight with the particular anxiety of someone who has been waiting for news they are not sure they want. "Thomas." I cleared my throat. My eyes were stinging again, and I tipped my head back slightly and blinked at the pale gray sky above the buildings until the feeling receded. "I need you to find me a lawyer, someone good, someone who handles medical cases." A sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "How bad is it, Dad?" I watched a yellow cab cut across 2 lanes of traffic and felt the cold March wind push against my face and thought about a small, dense shape on a black and gray scan that had been inside my body for 6 years, while my wife told me I was just getting old. "Bad enough," I said. I woke up to the sound of Thomas breathing. He was sitting in the chair beside my hospital bed, his elbows on his knees, his head bowed over his phone, and when I shifted against the pillow, he looked up so fast that I knew he had not been reading anything on that screen. He had just been holding it, waiting for me to open my eyes. "Hey," he said. His voice was rough at the edges, the way voices get when someone has been holding themselves together for too long, and the seams are starting to show. "Hey," I said back. The room was small and clean, with a window that looked out onto a gray April sky and the upper floors of the building across the street. My chest felt tender around the incision site, a small bandaged area just below my left collarbone, where Hayes had made a cut no longer than an inch and extracted the device that had been living inside me for 6 years. The soreness was manageable. It was the only thing about the morning that was. "How do you feel?" Thomas asked. "Like someone dug around in my chest with a scalpel," I said, which is accurate. He let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but not quite. He set his phone face down on his knee and leaned forward, and I could see the tension in his jaw, the way he was working to keep his expression neutral and not entirely succeeding. "Dad," he said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "When am I not honest with you?" "You're honest with me," he said. "You're just not always honest with yourself." He paused. "How long have you known something was wrong? Not with your health, with her?" The question sat between us in the pale morning light. Outside, a siren moved through the street below and faded. "I didn't know," I said. "I suspected. There's a difference." "Dad." "Thomas." I pushed myself up against the pillow, wincing slightly at the pull of the bandage. "I need you to understand something. For 28 years, that woman was my life. She was my partner and my physician and the person I trusted above everyone else. You don't walk away from 28 years because something feels off. You don't blow up your marriage because you have a bad feeling." Thomas's jaw tightened. He looked at the floor for a moment, and when he looked back up, his eyes were wet, not overflowing, just glassy the way eyes get when someone is fighting hard not to cry in front of their father. "I tried to tell you," he said. His voice dropped to something quieter and more careful. "Dad, I tried to tell you so many times. When she canceled Thanksgiving that year because you had a cold that wasn't even serious. When she stopped copying you on your own insurance paperwork. When she started answering for you at family dinners like you weren't capable of finishing your own sentences." He pressed his lips together. "I tried. And every time I brought it up, you told me I was being unfair to her." The truth of it hit me somewhere behind the sternum. Not the incision site, something deeper, something that didn't have a clinical name. "I know," I said. My throat tightened around the words. "I know you did, and I didn't listen. I'm sorry, Thomas. I'm genuinely sorry." Thomas shook his head quickly like he was trying to wave away the apology before it could settle. "Don't," he said. "You don't have to apologize to me. She's the one who—" He stopped, pressed his fingers against his eyes for a moment, hard enough that I could see the pressure whitening his knuckles. When he dropped his hand, his expression had steadied into something harder and more resolved. "You don't owe me an apology, Dad. You owe yourself one." We sat with that for a moment. Through the window, a pigeon landed on the ledge across the street, looked around with that bobbing, purposeful attention that pigeons have, and flew off again. "Tell me about this lawyer," I said finally. Thomas straightened in his chair. He reached into the canvas bag on the floor beside him and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a printout with a name, a firm name, an address on 5th Avenue. "Her name is Claire Donovan. She's been practicing for 22 years, mostly in New York. But she's handled cases in California, and she knows the elder abuse statutes there better than most California attorneys do." He handed me the paper. 3 of her last 5 cases involve financial fraud inside a marriage. She won all 3. I looked at the name on the paper: Claire Donovan, Elder Law and Financial Fraud. Donovan and Associates. "Elder Law," I said. The words felt strange in my mouth, clinical, and somehow diminishing the way medical language sometimes reduces a human experience to a category. "That's what this is, Dad." Thomas's voice was gentle but firm. "What she did, what she's been doing, it falls under elder abuse statutes. Taking financial control, isolating you from other medical opinions, manipulating your health care." He leaned forward again. "Hayes already filed a report with the California Medical Board this morning. That's a formal process now. It's moving whether we want it to or not." I folded the paper once and held it in both hands. My chest ached around the incision, that honest, straightforward pain that meant something real had been repaired. "What does Claire Donovan need from me?" I asked. "Everything," Thomas said. Every financial record you can get your hands on, every medical document, every email, every insurance form, every account statement going back as far as you can pull. He paused. And she's going to want to know about the will, Dad, the one you updated when you retired. I looked at him. Why the will? Because that might be why. Thomas held my gaze steadily. You retired in 2018 and updated your estate documents. You left 60% of everything to me. A beat. Victoria was in the room when you signed. The pieces of it, the timing of the 2019 surgery, the device that had been placed inside me without my knowledge, the 6 years of symptoms that my wife had quietly explained away, rearranged themselves in my mind into a shape I did not want to look at directly. She found out what the will said, I said slowly. And then 4 months later, she scheduled a surgery. Thomas said nothing. He did not need to. My hands tightened on the folded paper until the creases went white. The tenderness in my chest had spread outward, not the incision, not the physical repair, but something older and deeper and far less fixable. All right, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Set up the meeting with Claire Donovan as soon as possible. Thomas exhaled a long, shaking breath, like a man who has been underwater and has finally broken the surface. He reached out and put his hand on my forearm, and I put my other hand over his, and for a moment, we stayed exactly like that. A father and a son sitting together in a small hospital room in Manhattan, figuring out what came next. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I looked at the screen. Victoria. For the 11th time today. I picked up the phone, looked at her name, and turned it face down on the blanket. Not yet, I said. Not until I know everything. Claire Donovan's office did not look like money, which I later learned was intentional. There were no mahogany panels, no leather chairs, no framed awards arranged to impress. Just clean walls, natural light from 2 tall windows facing Fifth Avenue, a wide oak desk covered in organized stacks of documents, and a woman in her early 50s who stood up when Thomas and I walked in and shook my hand with the firm, no-ceremony grip of someone who had long since stopped performing confidence because she no longer needed to. "Mr. Carter," she said. "I've been expecting you. Sit down, please, both of you." We sat. Claire remained standing for a moment, pulling a thick folder from one of the stacks on her desk, then settled into her chair and opened it without preamble. "I want to be direct with you from the start," she said. "I've reviewed the materials Thomas sent me, and I've spoken with Dr. Hayes. What I'm about to show you is going to be difficult, but I need you to stay focused because what we do in the next few weeks matters enormously." She looked at me steadily. "Can you do that?" "I've been doing difficult for 6 years," I said. "I can manage a few more minutes." Something shifted in her expression, not quite a smile, but close. She slid a set of documents across the desk toward me. "These are your medical records from Cedars-Sinai, the originals obtained under California Health and Safety Code, Section 3111, which gives patients the absolute right to access their own medical files." She tapped the top page. "I want you to look at the consent form from your 2019 procedure." I picked it up. It was the same form I had seen in Hayes' office, my signature at the bottom, Victoria's looping handwriting on the physician certification line. I read through it slowly, the way I used to read structural specifications, looking for the load-bearing details. Diagnostic cardiac catheterization. Standard outpatient procedure. Risks include minor bleeding infection, allergic reaction to contrast dye. Nothing about a loop recorder. Nothing about an implant of any kind. "There's nothing here," I said. "Correct." Claire leaned forward and pointed to a section near the middle of the page, the physician's notes, filled a narrow box with typed text inside it. "Now look at this section, specifically at the font." I looked. The typed text in the notes field was slightly different from the rest of the document, fractionally smaller, the spacing between letters just a degree off from the surrounding text. If I had not been looking for it specifically, I would never have noticed. "Someone went back into this document after it was finalized," Claire said. Her voice was precise and clinical, but her eyes were sharp with something that might have been anger held under careful control. "The notes field was edited post-signature. The metadata from the digital file, which the records department inadvertently included in the export, shows the document was accessed and modified 14 months after your surgery. March 2020. Thomas made a sound beside me, a short involuntary exhale like someone had pressed on a bruise. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and stared at the document. "She went back in and changed the records," he said. "After the fact." "It appears so," Claire said. "The modification doesn't add any reference to the loop recorder. That would have been too obvious. What it does add is language describing elevated cardiac irregularities that would, in theory, justify more extensive monitoring." She paused. "In other words, she created a paper trail that could be used later to argue the device was medically necessary if anyone ever questioned it." The room felt smaller suddenly. The walls didn't move, the light didn't change, but something contracted around me, some sense of the size and patience of what had been done. "She planned this," I said. My voice came out flat, stripped of inflection. "Not just the procedure, the cover story. She planned the cover story too." "That's what the evidence suggests," Claire said. She pulled another sheet from the folder, a printed timeline, dates, and document references organized in 2 columns. "The pattern here is deliberate and sequential. The 2019 procedure places the device. The 2020 record modification creates justification. The ongoing management of your symptoms keeps you dependent on her medical authority and prevents you from seeking outside opinions." She set the timeline down and looked at me directly. "Daniel, under California Penal Code, Section 471.5, falsification of medical records is a criminal offense, and under California Business and Professions Code, Section 2234, what Dr. Carter did during that procedure constitutes unprofessional conduct at minimum and medical battery at the more serious end." "Medical battery," I repeated. The words were strange and ugly in my mouth. "Battery under California law is any intentional harmful or offensive contact with another person without their consent," Claire said. "A surgical implant placed without documented informed consent meets that definition. It doesn't matter that she's your wife. It doesn't matter that she's a physician. The law applies equally." She paused. "But before we get to the criminal side, I need to look at your finances, all of them. Joint accounts, individual accounts, investment portfolios, property deeds." She folded her hands on the desk. "Thomas mentioned you updated your will in 2018. I need to see that document, and I need to see every financial record from 2018 to present." I reached into the folder I had brought and slid a stack of documents across to her: bank statements, investment summaries, the updated will property records for the house in Los Angeles. Claire took them, without looking up, began organizing them with quick practice movements. "One more thing," I said. She looked up. "She called me this morning." My chest tightened around the words. Not the incision, the other tightness, the one that had nothing to do with anything Hayes could fix. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. I set my phone on the desk and pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the quiet office, warm, steady, the voice I had fallen in love with 28 years ago. "Daniel, sweetheart, I'm getting worried. Thomas said you're staying a few extra days, which is fine, of course, but you haven't been returning my calls, and that's not like you. I just want to make sure you're all right. Call me when you get a chance. I love you." Thomas's jaw went rigid. He turned his face toward the window, and I could see the muscles in his throat working as he swallowed hard against whatever was trying to come up. Claire listened to the entire message without expression. When it ended, she reached across the desk and stopped the recording. "She doesn't know," Claire said. It was not a question. "No," I said. "She doesn't know what Hayes found. She doesn't know I had the device removed. She doesn't know I'm sitting in your office right now." I picked up my phone and slid it back into my pocket. "And I need to keep it that way, for as long as possible." Claire nodded slowly. "Then we move carefully and we move fast." She closed the folder and looked at me with the steady, unflinching attention of someone who has sat across from enough damaged people to know exactly what they need to hear. "Daniel, I want to be honest with you about something. What you're describing, the medical manipulation, the record falsification, the financial control, this is not a simple divorce case. This is a criminal matter. It will get complicated and it will get painful before it gets better." She held my gaze. "But I have seen cases like this before, and I have won them." I looked at her for a long moment. Outside the windows behind her, Fifth Avenue hummed with its ordinary afternoon noise, taxis' voices, the city moving through itself without stopping. "Then let's start," I said. Claire opened a fresh legal pad, uncapped a pen, and began to write. The Bank of America branch on Madison Avenue was busy for a Tuesday morning. A line of 6 people at the teller, windows 2 financial advisors visible through glass-walled offices along the far wall. The low hum of a place where money moves and people pretend it doesn't matter as much as it does. Claire had called ahead. A branch manager named Michelle met us at the door, mid-40s, dark blazer, the careful neutrality of someone trained to deliver bad news without flinching. She led us past the teller line to a private consultation room in the back, a small space with a round table, 4 chairs, and a window that looked out onto a narrow alley. "Mr. Carter," Michelle said, setting a folder on the table. "I've pulled the full account history for the joint checking and savings accounts held under your name and Dr. Victoria Carter's name. Per your authorization as a co-account holder, I'm able to share this with you and your legal representative." She glanced at Claire, then back at me. "I want to prepare you. The statements go back 5 years, and there is a significant amount of transaction activity I think you'll want to review carefully." "How significant?" Claire asked. Michelle opened the folder and slid the top sheet across the table. I looked at the current balance first, $2,847. I read the number twice. Then I picked up the paper and held it closer, as though the distance between my eyes and the page was the problem, as though proximity would change what was printed there. That's not right," I said. My voice came out thin and strange, like a wire pulled too tight. "We had over $300,000 in that account. I watched it build for 20 years. Every paycheck, every bonus, every year. I worked overtime on a project that ran long." I stopped. My hand was shaking. The paper trembled between my fingers, and I set it back on the table before Michelle could see how badly. "That can't be right." Michelle's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted a brief, practiced softness. "Mr. Carter, I'm showing 52 outgoing wire transfers over the past 5 years, all initiated from this account, all authorized by the co-account holder listed as Dr. Victoria Ann Carter." She pulled out the second sheet, a dense column of dates and amounts and routing numbers. "The transfers began in January 2020 and continued through March of this year. The amounts range from $4,000 to $18,000 per transaction." Claire leaned forward and ran her finger down the column. Her jaw was tight. "All to the same recipient?" "All to the same recipient," Michelle confirmed. She pointed to the routing information at the top of the column. "A business account registered to an entity called Cascade Pacific LLC, incorporated in Delaware." Claire typed something into her laptop. 30 seconds passed. Then she turned the screen toward me and I leaned in to read it. "Cascade Pacific LLC, Registered Agent Delaware, Registered Agents Inc. Authorized signatory and account holder, Dr. Marcus Reed, UCLA Medical Center, Los Angeles, California." I did not know the name. I had never heard Victoria mention it. I stared at it on the screen and felt something cold move through my chest that had nothing to do with the incision Hayes had made 2 weeks earlier. "Who is Marcus Reed?" I asked. "A cardiologist at UCLA, Claire said. Her voice was level, but her eyes had gone very still, the stillness of someone assembling pieces into a shape they already suspected. "He and Victoria are colleagues. They have co-authored 2 papers on cardiac monitoring protocols in the last 4 years. A pause. "Which is interesting given the nature of the device found in your body." The fluorescent light above us buzzed faintly. Somewhere outside the consultation room, a phone rang and was answered. I pressed both palms flat on the table and breathed through it, that specific kind of breathing you learn when you've spent decades on construction sites where things occasionally go wrong in large and irreversible ways, where panic is a luxury no one can afford. "She's been sending him money," I said. "Our money for 5 years. 52 transfers," Claire said. "Total amount transferred $342,000. She closed the laptop. "Daniel, under California Penal Code, Section 487, theft of property valued above $950 constitutes grand theft. What we're looking at here is grand theft at a scale that carries a felony charge." She paused. "And because the transfers cross state lines from a California joint account to a Delaware registered entity. This also triggers federal wire fraud statutes under 18 U.S.C., Section 1343. That brings the FBI and potentially the IRS into the picture." Michelle was watching me with that careful professional neutrality, giving me the space to fall apart or hold together as I needed. I chose to hold together. I had always chosen to hold together. I was beginning to understand both my greatest strength and the thing that had made me so easy to dismantle slowly, piece by piece, in the dark. Can you tell me who authorized the account alerts? Claire asked Michelle. Notifications for transactions over a certain threshold, who was set up to receive those. Michelle checked her screen. Alerts are registered to a single mobile number. She read off the last 4 digits. I knew them without checking. I had dialed that number 10,000 times in 28 years. That's Victoria's number, I said. My voice had gone very flat. Not mine. She set up the account so that only she received transaction notifications. I looked at Claire. I never knew a single transfer was happening, not one. Claire wrote something in her legal pad. Then she looked up at me. Daniel, I need to ask you about your will, the one you updated in 2018 when you retired. I told her what I had told Thomas, 60%. To Thomas, the remainder split between a charitable fund and a small trust I had set up for home maintenance costs during my retirement years. Victoria had been in the room. Victoria had watched me sign. And 4 months after you signed that will, Claire said quietly, she scheduled the 2019 cardiac procedure. The words landed in the room with the weight of something structural failing, that particular silence that follows the sound you were afraid to hear. She found out Thomas was getting 60%, I said. The sentence felt strange in my mouth, like I was translating from a language I had only just learned. And she decided she was going to take it before he could. Claire set her pen down. She looked at me across the table with the steady, unflinching attention she had shown in every meeting since the first one. The look of someone who has sat with enough broken people to know that what they need is not softness, but clarity. There's something else, she said. Before we leave today, I want to freeze the remaining balance in this account, so no further transfers can be made. As your legal representative, I can file an emergency motion with the court for a temporary financial restraining order. It will limit Dr. Carter's ability to move assets while the investigation is underway. She paused. But Daniel, I also need you to be prepared for something. What I've described today, the record falsification, the unauthorized implant, the wire transfers, the financial control. This is a pattern. It didn't start with you, and it didn't start in 2019. She held my gaze. I think we need to find out who came before you. The room was very quiet. Outside in the branch, someone laughed at something, a brief, ordinary sound from a world where nothing had gone wrong yet. I thought about 28 years of mornings, of coffee at the kitchen table, and Victoria across from me, with her reading glasses pushed up into her hair, the light coming through the kitchen window of the Los Angeles house, the ordinary, unremarkable texture of a life I had believed in completely. My eyes burned sudden and hot. I pressed my thumb and forefinger against the bridge of my nose for a moment and held the pressure there until the feeling receded enough to speak. Find out, I said. Find out everything. Claire picked up her pen and wrote. The text message came on a Thursday morning while I was sitting at Thomas's kitchen table, working through a stack of bank statements with a highlighter and a legal pad. Unknown number, 8 words. Mr. Carter, my name is Olivia Grant. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then forwarded it to Claire. She called back within 4 minutes. I know who she is, Claire said. Her voice had that particular sharpened quality it got when something significant had surfaced. Olivia Grant worked as an administrative coordinator for Victoria at Cedars-Sinai from 2015 to 2022. She was terminated in October of that year. The official reason listed in her personnel file was performance issues, but 3 colleagues filed informal complaints with HR saying the termination felt retaliatory. A pause. Meet with her, today if possible. And Daniel, bring a recorder. We met at a coffee shop in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, a small place with mismatched chairs and the smell of dark roast and old wood. The kind of neighborhood spot that has been in the same location for 30 years because it has never tried to be anything other than what it is. I arrived 10 minutes early and sat near the back facing the door. Olivia Grant came in at exactly the agreed time. She was in her mid-40s with dark hair pulled back and the kind of careful assembled appearance of someone who had gotten dressed that morning with deliberate attention, as though looking put together was a form of armor she needed before walking into this particular conversation. She spotted me from the doorway, took a breath that I could see from across the room, and walked over. Mr. Carter, she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, but her fingers were cold, and when she sat down across from me, she wrapped both hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to absorb its warmth. Thank you for reaching out, I said. I almost didn't. She looked at the table for a moment, then back up at me. Her eyes were brown and very direct, the eyes of someone who had made a decision and was not going to allow herself to unmake it. I've been sitting on what I have for 3 years. Every time I thought about coming forward, I thought about what she said when she fired me. She pressed her lips together. She sat across from me in her office, and she said very calmly that if I ever discussed anything I had seen or heard during my time at the clinic, she would file a formal complaint with the California Department of Health alleging patient privacy violations. She said she had documentation. She said she would make sure I never worked in a medical administrative role again. Olivia's jaw tightened. I have 2 kids in college, Mr. Carter. I couldn't afford to fight her, so I kept quiet. What changed? I asked. I saw the medical board notice, she said. 2 weeks ago, it was filed publicly. A formal investigation opened against Dr. Victoria Carter, based on a report from a physician in New York. She looked at me steadily. I understood immediately what that meant, and I thought, if I don't do this now, I never will. She reached into her bag and placed a small USB drive on the table between us. I copied everything I could before I cleaned out my desk on my last day. Emails, scheduling logs, internal memos. I kept the drive in a shoebox in my closet for 3 years and told myself it was insurance. A short, humorless breath. Turns out it was evidence. I looked at the USB drive on the table. It was small and ordinary, the kind you buy in a 3-pack at a drugstore. I thought about everything it might contain and felt the familiar tightness move through my chest. Can I ask what's on it? I said. Emails mostly. Between Victoria and a Dr. Marcus Reed at UCLA. She watched my face as she said the name, and whatever she saw there seemed to confirm something for her. You know who he is. I know his name, I said. I learned it recently. That evening, Claire and Thomas and I sat around the table in Claire's office and went through the USB drive together. Claire had a forensic IT specialist copy and authenticate the files, first a process that took 2 hours and established a documented chain of custody for everything on the drive, which Claire said would be essential if the materials were ever presented in court. The emails numbered in the hundreds. Most were logistical scheduling, billing, administrative coordination. But Claire had written a short script to flag messages containing specific keywords, and within 30 minutes, she had isolated a folder of 43 emails that made the rest of the night feel very long. I read them in order from the oldest to the most recent. My son sat beside me and did not say anything, but at some point during the 3rd or 4th email, his hand found my forearm and stayed there, and I was grateful for it in a way I did not have words for. The emails documented in plain and businesslike language the movement of money from the joint account to Cascade Pacific LLC. Amounts, dates, routing numbers. Marcus Reed confirming receipt. Victoria confirming the next scheduled transfer. Back and forth, methodical and unhurried. The correspondence of 2 people who believed they would never be caught. And then Claire opened an email dated August 14th, 2023, and read it aloud in the quiet of her office. Victoria to Marcus Reed. He's been complaining about the fatigue again. I told him it's just his age. He believed me. He always believes me, Marcus. That's the thing about Daniel. He is a fundamentally trusting man, and I have spent a great deal of energy making sure that trust remained intact and directed toward me. A healthy man thinks he can leave whenever he chooses. A dependent man never does. That has always been the point. That has always been the entire point. Thomas made a sound sharp, involuntary, like someone had hit him unexpectedly in the sternum. He pushed back from the table and stood up and walked to the window, and stood there with his back to us. Both hands pressed flat against the glass, his shoulders rigid, his breathing audible and uneven. I sat very still. I read the email again. Then I read it a 3rd time, because some things need to be read more than once before the full weight of them can be understood. He always believes me. 28 years of mornings. 28 years of taking the medication she handed me and trusting the diagnosis she gave me, and believing without question that the woman sleeping beside me wanted what I wanted for me to be, well, for us to be, well, for the life we had built together, to mean what I believed it meant. My eyes burned so fiercely that I had to press the back of my hand against them. My throat closed around something that was not a word and would not become one. I sat at Claire's conference table at 11 o'clock at night in Manhattan, with my son's back to me at the window and my wife's words on the screen in front of me, and I felt something that had been load-bearing inside me for a very long time begin quietly and irrevocably to give way. Daniel. Claire's voice was low and careful. Take your time. I took a breath, then another. I lowered my hand from my eyes and looked at the screen. Print it, I said. My voice came out steady, which surprised me. Print all of them, every single one. Claire nodded and reached for her mouse. Across the room, Thomas turned from the window. His face was wet. He looked at me across the length of the office and did not try to hide it. And I thought, not for the first time, and not for the last, that my son was a braver man than I had ever given him credit for being. "We're gonna get her dad," he said. His voice shook on the last word, but held. I looked at him for a long moment. Outside Manhattan hummed its late-night hum, taxis' distant music, the city that never fully quiets. "I know," I said, "but first I need Claire to find out who came before me." Claire looked up from her laptop. "I already started," she said. "There's a name, Robert Ashford, Greenwich, Connecticut. I think you need to meet him. Greenwich is 45 minutes from Manhattan, on a good day an hour and 10 when the traffic backs up through Stamford, which it did on the Thursday morning. Claire and I drove out to meet Robert Ashford. We didn't talk much on the way. Claire drove, and I watched Connecticut slide past the window, the green expensive quiet of it, the old money that doesn't announce itself, the kind of wealth that has been in the same families long enough to feel like landscape rather than achievement. Robert Ashford lived in a house on the eastern edge of town that had clearly once been worth considerably more than it was now. The lawn was maintained but not manicured. The paint on the shutters had faded to the color of old bone. There was a car in the driveway, a 10-year-old Subaru, with a cracked rear bumper and a ceramic pot by the front door with a geranium in it that someone was watering regularly, which told me that whoever lived here had not entirely given up. He opened the door before we reached the porch. Robert Ashford was 65 years old, and he looked like a man who had been through something that had taken years off him in the wrong direction. His hair was fully white and cut close, his frame still broad through the shoulders, but carrying the slight forward lean of someone who had been braced against something for a long time. His eyes were blue-gray and very clear, and they moved to me immediately, not to Claire, not scanning the yard directly to me, with the focused attention of someone who had been waiting for this specific visitor. "Mr. Carter," he said, not a question. His voice was quieter than I expected, a little worn at the edges. "Mr. Ashford." I extended my hand and he shook it firm, brief no ceremony. "Come inside," he said. I made coffee. The living room was small and clean. Bookshelves along two walls, a couch with a quilt folded over one arm, a coffee table with 3 mugs already set out, no photographs on the walls, no visible remnants of a former life that had included more than this. I sat on the couch. Claire sat beside me with her legal pad open on her knee. Robert lowered himself into the armchair across from us and wrapped both hands around his mug and looked at me for a long moment before he spoke. "How bad is it?" he asked. "Bad," I said. He nodded slowly, the nod of someone receiving confirmation of something they already knew. "Tell me what she did to you. I'll tell you when I've heard it before." So I told him. I kept it to the facts. The 6 years of symptoms, the 2019 procedure, the cardiac loop recorder, the consent form, the wire transfers, the emails. Robert listened without interrupting, his eyes on me, the whole time, his coffee going cold in his hands. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Not the absence of something to say, but the weight of recognition settling. "The procedure," he said finally. "She didn't do that to me. When we were together, she hadn't finished her residency yet. She was still in training." He set his mug down. "But everything else, the isolation, the financial control, the way she made me feel like I was the problem, like my perception of reality couldn't be trusted. That's word for word." He rubbed one hand across his jaw. "She has a script, Mr. Carter. She has had it for a long time." "How did it start?" Claire asked. "With you." Robert leaned back in the armchair. He looked at the ceiling for a moment, as though reading something written there, then back at us. "I was 31 when I met her," he said. "She was 25. I was doing well, commercial real estate, good portfolio, solid income. She was finishing her medical degree, and she was the most composed, capable person I had ever met. She never seemed rattled by anything. I found that very attractive." He paused. "That was the first mistake, mistaking control for composure." "What happened?" I asked. "It started small," Robert said. "The way it always does, I imagine. She offered to manage our finances, said it was more efficient, she was better with numbers. She had more time. I thought it was practical. I didn't realize what I was handing over." He turned his mug slowly on the table. Then she started coming to my business meetings. Just to listen, she said. Just to support me. But she'd always find something to critique afterward: my approach, my tone, the clients I chose. She'd say it gently, always gently, but after a while, I started second-guessing every decision I made at work. He looked up at me. Do you know what it feels like when someone dismantles your confidence so slowly that you don't notice it happening until you're afraid to make a phone call without asking them first? My throat tightened. Yes, I said. I know exactly what that feels like. Robert held my gaze for a moment. Something passed between us. Not pity, not sympathy exactly, but the specific recognition of two men who have been taken apart by the same hands. When I finally started to understand what she was doing, I tried to push back, he said. I asked to look at our financial accounts. She said I was being paranoid, that she was hurt, I didn't trust her. I said I wanted to see a therapist on my own, without her involvement. She found reasons to make that difficult. The timing, the cost. The particular therapist I'd chosen wasn't qualified enough. He shook his head slowly. She was always 3 steps ahead. Always had an answer. Always made me feel like the problem was the question I was asking, not the thing I was asking about. How did it end? Claire said. Badly. Robert stood up and went to the bookshelf along the far wall. He pulled out a manila envelope, the kind that had been opened and resealed multiple times, and brought it back to the coffee table. He did not sit down again. When I finally filed for divorce, she moved first. She had already spoken to her attorney. She had already filed documents with the court suggesting I was financially incompetent, that I had made a series of poor investment decisions that jeopardized our shared assets, and that she needed to be named as the managing trustee of our marital estate while the proceedings were ongoing. He set the envelope on the table. She had records, bank statements I didn't recognize, meeting notes from conversations I wasn't at. All of it professionally prepared, all of it in order. His jaw tightened. My attorney told me later she must have been building that file for at least a year. I looked at the envelope on the table and felt something cold move through me. She tried to have you declared incompetent. She succeeded in having the court appoint a financial overseer for our shared assets during the divorce proceedings, Robert said. Which meant I couldn't access anything, our accounts, our property, none of it, without going through a court-appointed administrator who was reviewing every transaction. He sat back down. By the time the divorce was finalized, most of what we had built together had been absorbed by legal fees and administrative costs. I walked away with 30 cents on the dollar. He looked at his hands. I tried to tell people what she had done. My attorney, my brother, 2 friends who were attorneys. They all said the same thing: she's a doctor, Robert. She has documentation. You don't. A pause. Nobody believed a husband over a physician. The room was very quiet, except for the sound of a lawnmower somewhere down the street, moving back and forth in its patient, repetitive way. Why didn't you report her to the medical board? Claire asked. At the time, or afterward, Robert looked at her. Because she told me that if I did, she would release private materials she had in her possession. Personal things from our marriage. His voice flattened on the last sentence in the way that voices do when someone has made their peace with a humiliation, but has not forgotten it. She was very specific about what she had and what she would do with it. I believed her. He looked at me. I still believe she would have done it. I reached for my coffee, found it had gone cold, and put it back down. Robert, I said, I need to ask you something directly. Ask. When you look at what happened to you and what she's been doing to me, do you think this is something she learned? Something she developed over time? Or do you think this is who she has always been? Robert Ashford looked at me for a long moment. Outside, the lawnmower had stopped. The street was very quiet. I think, he said carefully, that Victoria has always known exactly what she was doing. I think she was doing it before me, and I think she was doing it during me, and I think she kept doing it after. He picked up his mug, looked into it, set it down. She doesn't make mistakes, Mr. Carter. She makes plans. He looked up, and his blue-gray eyes were very steady, very clear. She doesn't marry men. She acquires them, studies them, learns what they trust most, and makes herself into that thing. And when she's done, he glanced around the small, clean room, with its faded shutters and its single geranium by the door. She discards them like files she no longer needs. I stood up when we left. I shook Robert Ashford's hand at the door, and he held it a moment longer than a handshake requires. Use what happened to me, he said quietly. Use all of it. Make sure someone believes you. I nodded. They will, I said. This time they will. He released my hand and stepped back into his house and closed the door, and Claire and I walked to the car, and I got in and looked straight ahead at the faded paint on Robert Ashford's shutters and felt the full terrible weight of a pattern that had been running without interruption for longer than my entire marriage. She did this before, I said. Yes, Claire said. She started the car. And we're going to prove it. Before I tell you what Daniel found hidden behind that bookshelf, something that changed everything he thought he knew about his marriage, drop the word notebook in the comments right now. That's how I know you're still with me. A quick note: what follows contains some fictionalized elements shaped for storytelling and educational purposes. If that's not for you, it's okay to step away, no hard feelings at all. Victoria's home office smelled like her. That particular combination of cedar and something faintly antiseptic, the smell of a doctor who has never fully left the hospital behind. I stood in the doorway for a moment before I stepped inside. She was on night shift at Cedars-Sinai. She wouldn't be home until 7 in the morning. I had 4 hours, and Claire had told me exactly what to look for. The room was precisely arranged bookshelves along 2 walls, a desk with nothing on it except a lamp and a closed laptop, framed diplomas above the window. No photographs, not one. I had never noticed that before. In 28 years of marriage, my wife had not placed a single photograph of us anywhere in the room where she spent the most time alone. I moved to the bookshelf and began working from left to right, pulling volumes forward to check behind them. Gray's Anatomy, Harrison's Principles, 3 volumes of clinical cardiology that still had their publisher's stickers on the spines, and then behind a row of thick reference texts on the bottom shelf, my hand found something that was not a book. A small steel safe bolted to the wall with a digital keypad. My heart rate climbed. I took out my phone and called Claire. I found something, I said. A safe, behind the bookshelf. Try the date of your 2019 surgery, Claire said immediately. April 12th, 04122019. I typed it in. The safe clicked open. Inside there was one item, a leather-bound notebook, dark brown, the kind sold at upscale stationery stores. No label on the cover. I carried it to the desk, sat down and opened it. The handwriting was Victoria's neat, controlled, almost printed. The kind of handwriting that belongs to someone who has never allowed urgency to affect their penmanship. The first page was dated January 2020, month 1. D shows early signs of increased dependency following the April procedure. Fatigue complaints are consistent with the projected timeline. Medical authority remains unquestioned. Initial phase proceeding as planned. My hands went very still against the page. I turned to the next entry, and the next. Each page was a month. Each month was a clinical notation, not the journal of a wife, not the record of a marriage, but the progress report of someone running a long-term study on a subject who did not know he was being studied. Month 14. Fatigue complaints are increasing. Subject resistant to outside social engagements. Dependency on my schedule and judgment has deepened. Isolation from Thomas, proceeding naturally. Month 22. Subject mentioned wanting a second opinion on cardiac symptoms. Redirected. Subject accepted explanation without resistance. Month 38. Subject attempted to schedule an appointment with outside physician. Intervention successful. Subject did not follow through. I called Claire back. My voice when it came out was steadier than I had any right to expect. It's a notebook, I said. She's been documenting me, every month, for years. I swallowed against the tightness in my throat. She calls me subject. Claire was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Read me the last entry. I turned to the final page. The ink was darker here, a different pen, written more recently than the entries before it. I read it once to myself, before I read it aloud, because some things need a moment of private recognition before they can be spoken. Phase 4, incapacity filing. Target December 2025. Financial transfer to Cascade Pacific LLC complete. POA documents prepared. D will sign when presented. He always does. I set the notebook down on the desk. Outside, a car moved slowly down our street, its headlights sweeping briefly across the window, and was gone. Daniel. Claire's voice was low and careful. Are you all right? I looked at the notebook on my wife's desk, in my wife's handwriting, in my wife's room, in the house we had shared for 20 years. He always does, I said quietly. She wrote that about me. She knew me well enough to know exactly what I would do, and she planned around it. My chest ached, not the incision, not the cardiac recorder, something older and deeper that no surgery could reach. She never once thought I would stop. Daniel, Claire's voice sharpened slightly. Listen to me. This notebook is the most important thing we have found. It is written in her hand. It documents her intent over a period of years. It is a confession. A pause. Take photographs of every page, every single one. Then put it back exactly where you found it. Why put it back? Because when we come for it with a warrant, it needs to be exactly where it is right now. Chain of custody. Her voice was firm and precise. We do this right. We do this once. I photographed every page, 41 months of entries. When I was done, I placed the notebook back in the safe, closed the door, heard the lock engage, and pushed the books back into place. Then, I sat on the floor of my wife's office in the dark, my back against the bookshelf, and stared at the wall across from me. He always does. Not this time, I said to the empty room. The hardest thing I have ever done was not identifying the safe behind the bookshelf or reading 41 months of my wife's clinical notations about my own deterioration, or sitting on the floor of her office in the dark afterward with my back against the wall and my hands in my lap and the full weight of it pressing down on my chest. The hardest thing I have ever done was walk back through the front door of our Los Angeles home 2 days later, set my bag down in the entryway, and smile when Victoria came around the corner from the kitchen. "You're back," she said. She crossed the room and put her arms around me and pressed her cheek against mine, and her perfume was exactly the same as it had been for 28 years, and I held her and patted her back and said, "Good to be home." She pulled back and looked at me with those calm, assessing eyes, the eyes that had been looking at me for nearly 3 decades and that I now understood had never been seeing what I thought they were seeing. "You look tired," she said. "Long trip," I said. "How's Thomas?" "Good. He sends his love." She nodded and went back to the kitchen, and I picked up my bag and carried it down the hall to our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall for 30 seconds before I trusted myself to stand back up again. That was how the next 3 weeks went. Breakfast at 7, Victoria in her reading glasses with the medical journal. She subscribed to me with my coffee and the Los Angeles Times, both of us performing the ordinary morning of a long marriage. She would ask about my sleep. She always asked about my sleep, and I would say it was fine, a little restless, nothing serious. She would nod and make a note in the small leather planner she kept beside her coffee cup, and I would watch her write and think about a different notebook locked in a safe behind a bookshelf 12 feet from where we were sitting. At night, when she went to bed early before a morning shift, I would go to the kitchen table and open my laptop and write to Claire. We had developed a system, encrypted email, nothing on my phone, nothing that could be found in a browser history. I would report what I had observed during the day, any documents I had seen, any conversations that seemed relevant. Claire would respond with updates on the investigation and instructions for the following day. It was, I realized one evening while typing an update at midnight, the most deliberate and sustained act of my life, more demanding than any engineering project I had ever managed, because in engineering, you can afford to show strain. The structure can creak before it holds. In this, I could not afford a single visible crack. Victoria was not careless. That was what I had to remember every hour of every day that I spent in that house with her. She was not careless, and she was not trusting, and she had spent 30-plus years studying human behavior with the specific goal of identifying and exploiting its vulnerabilities. If I gave her one real look one morning, where my eyes held something other than what they were supposed to hold, she would know. So, I gave her nothing. On a Tuesday morning in the 3rd week, she set a thin stack of papers beside my coffee cup at breakfast. "Daniel," she said, settling into her chair across from me, "I've been meaning to bring this up. With everything that's been going on with your health these past few years, I think we should have proper documents in place." She tapped the top of the stack with one finger. Her nail was neatly trimmed, no polish. "It's a durable power of attorney. Standard language, nothing complicated. It just means that if something were to happen to you, if you were incapacitated for any reason, I'd be able to make financial and medical decisions on your behalf without going through the courts." I picked up the papers. I read the first page slowly, the way I used to read contracts on construction projects, looking for the clauses that did the most work while attracting the least attention. A durable power of attorney, under California probate code, a document that grants another person the legal authority to manage your finances, sign contracts, and make binding decisions on your behalf, effective immediately upon signing, not conditional on incapacity. In the wrong hands, it was not a protection. It was a key. "It's just a precaution," Victoria said. Her voice was warm and reasonable. "You're 68, Daniel. We should have these things sorted." She smiled that particular smile, the one that had always made me feel simultaneously cared for and slightly foolish for needing to be cared for. "I had our attorney draft it. It's completely standard." I turned to the signature page. A blank line waited at the bottom. My hand did not tremble. I was proud of that. "Let me read through the whole thing tonight," I said. "You know me, I like to understand what I'm signing." Something moved across her face very briefly, barely a flicker gone, before it fully formed. "Of course," she said. "Take your time." She picked up her medical journal. I picked up my coffee. We sat across from each other in the morning light of the kitchen we had shared for 20 years. And I looked at my wife over the rim of my cup, and she looked at her journal, and neither of us said anything else. And the silence between us was the most dangerous thing in the room. That evening, I photographed every page of the POA documents and emailed them to Claire. Her response came 40 minutes later. 2 sentences. "This is phase 4. Do not sign under any circumstances. I am filing the financial restraining order tomorrow morning." I read her message twice. Then I closed my laptop, washed my coffee cup, turned off the kitchen light, and walked down the hall to the bedroom, where my wife was already asleep. I lay down beside her in the dark and stared at the ceiling and thought about a line written in neat, controlled handwriting in a leather notebook in a locked safe 12 feet away. "He always does." 3 more weeks, I told myself. Hold for 3 more weeks. I closed my eyes and listened to Victoria. Breathe slow and even and entirely unbothered, and I did not sleep at all. Margaret Sullivan lived in a small house in Arcadia, 22 miles east of Cedars-Sinai, in a neighborhood of modest yards and mature trees, and the particular quietness of places where people go to recover from something without announcing it. Claire had found her through the nursing license registry. Margaret was still active, still working now, at a smaller community hospital in Monrovia. She had agreed to meet us after Claire's 3rd attempt at contact, a fact that told me everything I needed to know about how frightened she still was. The front yard had a rose garden along the fence line, 6 bushes all in bloom, red and pink, and one the color of old cream. Someone had been tending them carefully for a long time. I noticed it the way you notice small evidence of a person's character before you've met them. Whoever lived here had found something worth keeping alive. Margaret opened the door before we knocked. She was 58, with silver-streaked hair cut to her shoulders, and the kind of face that had clearly been warm once and had learned to be careful. She looked at Claire, first then at me, and when her eyes met mine, they filled immediately, not spilling over, just filling the way eyes do when someone has been holding something back for so long that the slightest permission causes it to rise. "Mr. Carter," she said. Her voice broke on the second word. "Mrs. Sullivan," I said. She pressed her lips together hard and stepped back from the door. "Come inside," she said. "Please." The living room was small and carefully kept a couch with throw pillows, framed photographs of children and grandchildren on the side table, a ceramic mug on a coaster that was still steaming. She had been sitting here waiting for us. I thought about how long she must have been waiting, not just this morning, but in the larger sense. 6 years of sitting with something that had no place to go. We sat. Margaret did not. She stood by the window with her arms crossed over her chest, her back partially to the room, looking out at the rose garden, with an expression that had moved past grief into something harder and more determined. "I've been waiting for someone to come," she said to the window, to the roses, to no one in particular. I told myself 100 times that I should reach out, that I should find a way to say something. Her voice steadied as she spoke, each word firmer than the one before it, like someone finding the ground under their feet. I convinced myself every time that it wasn't my place, that I didn't have enough, that no one would believe a nurse over a physician. She turned from the window. Her jaw was set and her eyes were dry, now resolved, fully committed to what she was about to do. "I was wrong to wait. I know that, and I'm sorry." "Tell us what happened," Claire said. Her voice was gentle and precise, the voice of someone who knows that the way you ask determines what you receive. Margaret sat down across from us. She folded her hands in her lap, the deliberate stillness of someone managing a physical response, and began. The procedure was scheduled for April 12th, 2019, she said. I was assigned as scrub nurse for the case. The consent form listed it as a diagnostic cardiac catheterization, a standard imaging procedure, low-risk outpatient. Dr. Carter had performed dozens of them. There was nothing unusual about the scheduling. She paused. Her hands tightened against each other. About 40 minutes into the procedure, after the imaging component was complete, Dr. Carter asked for a loop recorder kit. She said it calmly, the same tone she used for everything, that very level voice she has. Margaret's jaw tightened slightly. I looked at the consent form on the board. There was no authorization for a loop recorder implantation. I said quietly that I didn't see it on the consent. I asked if there was a supplemental form. What did she say? I asked. Margaret looked at me directly. She said, "Margaret, you do your job and I'll do mine, or I can make sure you don't have a job to do." She delivered the words flatly without drama, which made them land harder than any theatrical recounting would have. She did not raise her voice. She did not stop working. She just said it and moved on, and She pressed her lips together for a moment. I handed her the kit. I told myself it was a miscommunication, that the paperwork would be corrected afterward, that Dr. Carter was one of the most respected physicians in the department, and she would not do something that wasn't in the patient's interest. Her eyes filled again, and this time one tear escaped, and she caught it with her knuckle quickly, almost angrily. I told myself a lot of things. The room was very quiet except for the distant sound of a sprinkler somewhere outside the tick of a clock on the mantel. After the procedure, Margaret continued, I went to the records coordinator and asked about the supplemental consent. I was told the file was complete as submitted. She shook her head slowly. I knew then. I knew something was wrong. But Dr. Carter called me into her office 2 days later. She told me that any discussion of what occurred during that procedure would be considered a breach of patient confidentiality and a violation of operating room protocol. She said she had already documented the incident from her perspective, and that her documentation would supersede mine if there was ever a discrepancy. Margaret's voice hardened. She told me that nurses who create problems for their departments tend to find their licenses reviewed for unrelated infractions. She was very calm about it. She made it sound almost administrative. My hands were pressing flat against my knees. I could feel the tendons along the backs of them pulling tight. She threatened you, I said. She informed me of the consequences, Margaret said. Very precisely. That's how she does it. It never sounds like a threat. It sounds like information. She looked at me steadily. I have 2 grandchildren now, Mr. Carter. I have a career. I have spent 30 years building. I was afraid. Her voice dropped. I am still afraid if I'm being honest with you, but I am more afraid of what happens if I keep quiet than what happens if I speak. Claire slid a document across the coffee table, 2 pages clipped together. This is a sworn affidavit documenting what you've just described. Under California law, your statement as a direct witness to what occurred in that operating room is material evidence in both the medical board investigation and the criminal case. She paused. Signing this means your account becomes part of the formal record. It will be used in legal proceedings. Dr. Carter will know you testified. Margaret looked at the document for a long moment. Then she picked up the pen from the coffee table, the pen she had already set out before we arrived, and signed her name at the bottom of both pages without reading them again. Her hand did not shake. She looked up at me when she was done, and her eyes were very clear. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry it took me 6 years. You deserve better than that. The tightness in my throat came on so quickly that I had no warning. I pressed my thumb and forefinger against the bridge of my nose and held the pressure there until it receded enough to speak. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. She held my gaze for a moment longer, then looked down at her folded hands. On the drive back to Claire's office, we were 20 minutes out of Arcadia when Claire's phone rang through to the car speakers. She answered on the first ring. The caller identified himself as David Merritt, the forensic accountant. I found another account, Merritt said. His voice had the flat, careful quality of someone delivering news they know will not be received well. Not California, not Delaware. Claire glanced at me. Where? A brief pause on the line. Switzerland, Merritt said. I was on the 6:15 flight out of LAX and in Claire's office by noon the following day. David Merritt was already there when I arrived, a man in his early 50s with close-cropped gray hair and the compact, unhurried manner of someone who has spent 20 years finding money that other people believed was hidden. He was standing at Claire's conference table with 3 laptops open and a printer running in the corner of the room, and he looked up when I walked in with the expression of a man who has been waiting to show someone something and is not entirely sure how they will receive it. "Mr. Carter," he said, "sit down, please. This is going to take a few minutes to walk through, and I want to make sure you understand all of it before we discuss next steps." I sat. Claire poured coffee and set a cup in front of me without asking. I wrapped both hands around it and looked at Merritt and waited. "Let me start with what you already know," Merritt said. He turned one of the laptops to face me, a spreadsheet columns of dates and amounts and account numbers. "You already know the visible layer, 52 transfers, $342,000, all to Cascade Pacific LLC through Dr. Marcus Reed." He nodded once. "What I found over the past 3 weeks is what's underneath it." He pulled up a second document, a banking registry, dense with institutional names and routing codes. "Victoria has been routing money through Cascade Pacific in stages," Merritt said. "Reed receives the transfers and believes he is holding the funds jointly, that they are building a shared account in preparation for whatever plan he thinks they have together." He paused. "He is not. Approximately 60% of each transfer is moved again within 72 hours through a second LLC registered in the Cayman Islands, and from there into a private account at a wealth management bank in Zurich, Switzerland." He tapped the screen. "The account was opened in March 2021. The primary account holder is Victoria Ann Carter. Marcus Reed's name appears nowhere on the account, not as co-owner, not as beneficiary, not as an authorized contact." I looked at the screen. The numbers were precise and clean, the way numbers always are when someone has been very careful for a very long time. "How much?" I asked. "Current balance as of last week, $1.2 million. Merritt said it the way accountants say large numbers, without inflection, letting the figure carry its own weight. "That's net of the transfer fees and the currency conversion costs. The gross amount moved through the Cayman intermediary over 4 years is closer to 1.4. Claire set her coffee cup down. "Marcus Reed doesn't know this account exists. Based on everything I've been able to access, no, he does not." Merritt closed the second laptop. "From Reed's perspective, he and Victoria have been accumulating shared funds in preparation for a future together. He believes the money in Cascade Pacific is jointly controlled. He has no knowledge of the Cayman routing or the Zurich account." A pause. "He is, in the financial sense, as much a victim of this arrangement as your client." The words settled in the room. I turned them over slowly, the way you turn something unfamiliar in your hands before you understand what it is. Victoria had not built a plan to leave me for Marcus Reed. She had built a plan to leave both of us, me declared incompetent and stripped of assets Marcus left, holding an empty shell company and a set of promises that were never going to be kept, while she took $1.2 million to a private account in Zurich and began again somewhere no one was looking for her. "She was going to use him," I said. My voice came out very flat. "The same way she used me. Different role, same outcome." "That is what the financial evidence suggests," Merritt said carefully. "How do we get the Zurich money back?" Claire asked. Merritt leaned back in his chair. "Switzerland has a mutual legal assistance treaty with the United States, the MLAT, which allows U.S. law enforcement to request asset freezes and account information from Swiss financial institutions in the context of a criminal investigation. It's not fast. The process typically takes months, but it is effective particularly in cases involving wire fraud and financial elder abuse, which have both federal and international dimensions." He looked at me. "I've already been in contact with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. They are formally interested. Once the DA in Los Angeles files criminal charges, the federal component moves with it." I nodded. I was listening to every word and processing almost none of it, because underneath the financial mechanics and the legal frameworks and the procedural steps, there was a simpler truth that kept pushing up through everything else. She was never going to stop. Not with me, not with Marcus, not with whoever came after in whatever city she chose under whatever version of herself she decided to construct next. She had been running this same architecture of control and extraction for decades, refining it with each iteration, and she would have kept running it indefinitely if Hayes had not looked at a scan on a Tuesday afternoon in March and asked who had been managing my care. I thought about Robert Ashford and his house in Greenwich, with his faded shutters and his single geranium. I thought about what 30 cents on the dollar looks like when you have spent your life building something you believed was shared. I thought about Margaret Sullivan in Arcadia, sitting with 6 years of silence that had cost her something she would not fully recover. My throat tightened around all of it. I pressed my jaw firm and kept my eyes on the table. David, Claire said, "What's our timeline for the arrest warrant?" Merritt glanced at her. "Based on what I've compiled, the wire transfers, the Zurich routing documentation, the Cayman intermediary records, combined with the sworn affidavit from Margaret Sullivan and the forensic analysis of the altered medical records, you have enough for a warrant today." He folded his hands on the table. "The stronger question is how much additional time you want to allow for the IRS to formalize their involvement before the arrest triggers the full federal component." Claire looked at me. I stood up and walked to the window. Below Fifth Avenue ran its usual afternoon crowd, people moving in every direction, with the particular New York purposefulness that never pauses for anything. I watched them for a moment and thought about Victoria in our Los Angeles kitchen that morning, 3 weeks ago, setting the POA papers beside my coffee cup with a smile that had taken me 28 years to correctly read. He always does. I turned back from the window. "Get the warrant," I said. "Whatever the timeline is, start it now. I'm done waiting." Claire picked up her phone and began to dial. Merritt began closing his laptops, stacking his folders, preparing to move to the next phase of the work with the methodical efficiency of someone who has done this before and knows exactly what comes after. And I stood at the window of a law office on Fifth Avenue and felt for the first time in longer than I could accurately measure something that was not the tight, careful management of anger and grief and the daily discipline of endurance. I felt ready. The warrant was signed at 7:43 in the morning. Claire texted me the confirmation while I was sitting at the kitchen table in Thomas's Brooklyn apartment, both hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had gone cold an hour ago. I read the message twice, set my phone face down on the table, and stared at the window. Outside, Brooklyn was doing what Brooklyn does at 7:43 on a Thursday morning: garbage trucks, school buses, the particular urban percussion of a borough that never waits for anyone to be ready. I was not ready. I was not sure I would ever be ready. But the warrant existed now, and the world was moving, whether I was ready or not. Claire called at 9:17. "It's done," she said. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. "Tell me." Two detectives from LAPD coordinating with the California Medical Board. They went into Cedars-Sinai at 9 o'clock. Claire's voice was steady and precise, the voice she used when she was managing her own response to something in order to manage mine. She was in a department meeting, conference room on the 3rd floor. They walked in, identified themselves, and placed her under arrest. A pause. She didn't resist. She didn't say anything. She looked around the room, once I think she was looking for someone who might intervene, and then she let them put the handcuffs on. I pressed my free hand flat against the kitchen table. The wood was solid and cool and real under my palm. "Her colleagues," I said. "Were they there?" "The entire department," Claire said. 6 physicians, 4 nurses, 2 residents. Nobody moved. I closed my eyes. I had spent 28 years watching Victoria walk into rooms and own them the particular authority she carried, the way people deferred to her, the invisible architecture of reputation and confidence that she had built so carefully around herself. And now that architecture had come down in front of the people who had stood inside it with her, and nobody had moved. I thought about one morning early in our marriage, Victoria in the kitchen of our first apartment, laughing at something I had said, her head tipped back completely unguarded. I had thought then that I was the luckiest man alive. The memory lasted 1 second. Then I let it go. "Daniel." Claire's voice pulled me back. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I said. The word came out steadier than I felt. "What happens now?" "She'll be processed and arraigned within 48 hours. The DA's office will present the charges formally. Bail will likely be set high given the financial evidence and the flight risk the Zurich account alone will concern any judge." A pause. "Marcus Reed has already been contacted. His attorney called this morning. He wants to talk." "Of course he does," I said. "Daniel, this is good news. Reed cooperating means the prosecution's case gets stronger before it even reaches a courtroom." I stood up from the table and walked to the window. Below, a woman was walking a dog, a large, cheerful golden retriever that was pulling toward a fire hydrant with the single-minded enthusiasm of a creature uncomplicated by anything. I watched them for a moment and felt something in my chest release, not dramatically, Not all at once, but the way pressure releases from a structure when the load it was never designed to carry is finally carefully removed. "Claire," I said. "Yes. Thank you." I meant it in a way that the two words were not large enough to hold, but they were the words I had, so I gave her those. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "The trial is going to be hard. Marsh is good, and he is going to come after you on that stand." A pause. "But we have everything. The notebook, Margaret's affidavit, the Zurich account, the emails, the consent form, the wire transfers." Her voice was firm and certain. "She documented her own crimes, Daniel, in her own handwriting. That is not something a defense attorney can explain away." I looked out at Brooklyn, the rooftops, the water towers, the pale August sky above it all. "Then let's go prove it," I said. "Before I play you the recording that brought everything crashing down, the one Victoria never knew existed, comment truth below, so I know you're still here with me. As always, this story contains fictionalized elements. You're welcome to step away at any point." The DA's office in downtown Los Angeles occupied the 14th floor of a building on West Temple Street that smelled like old carpet and recycled air, and the particular institutional weariness of a place where serious things happen every day and nobody has time to be dramatic about it. Sandra Cole met us at the elevator, mid-40s. Dark hair pulled back, a charcoal blazer over a white shirt, the kind of woman who looks like she has already read everything in the room before anyone else has sat down. She shook my hand, and Claire said she was glad I had made the trip, and led us down a corridor to a conference room where Marcus Reed was already waiting. I had never seen him before. He was 58, broad across the shoulders, with the fading tan of someone who had spent a lot of time outdoors in better years. He was sitting with his hands flat on the table, and his attorney beside him, a younger man in an expensive suit who looked like he had not slept well. And when I walked in, Marcus looked up and held my gaze for a moment, with an expression I recognized, because I had worn it myself not long ago. The expression of a man who has just understood the full dimensions of what has been done to him. "Mr. Carter," he said. His voice was rough at the edges. I sat down across from him and said nothing. I was not ready to offer him anything yet, not acknowledgement, not sympathy, not the comfort of shared victimhood. I needed to hear what he had first. Sandra Cole took the chair at the head of the table and opened a folder. "Dr. Reed has agreed to full cooperation with the prosecution in exchange for a reduced charge from conspiracy to commit wire fraud down to accessory after the fact, with a recommended sentence of 18 months probation and full financial restitution." She looked at Marcus. "In return, Dr. Reed has provided materials that materially strengthen the state's case against Dr. Victoria Carter." She paused. "Dr. Reed, please explain to Mr. Carter what you brought us." Marcus cleared his throat. He reached into his jacket pocket and placed a smartphone on the table. Older model, the screen cracked in one corner. He did not look at it. He looked at the wall behind my head. "I started to suspect something was wrong in June," he said. "Victoria became different, more careful about what she said to me, shorter conversations. She stopped talking about our plans the way she used to." His jaw tightened. "I've been in enough situations in my life where someone was managing me rather than talking to me. I recognized the feeling." He paused. "I started recording our conversations. California requires all parties to consent to recording. I knew that. But Victoria and I met twice in Nevada that summer, in Las Vegas, when she said it was easier to talk away from the city. Nevada is a one-party consent state. Those two Nevada recordings are the ones that matter." He paused. "The one from July 19th that was Las Vegas. She didn't know I was recording. And you brought those Nevada recordings to us," Cole said. "Most of them are logistics, transfer confirmations, scheduling." Marcus picked up the phone, turned it over once in his hands, set it back down. "But there is one from July 19th. I had asked Victoria directly when we were going to move, when we were going to leave." His voice flattened on the next word, stripped of everything except the blunt fact of them. "She didn't know I was recording." Cole reached across the table and plugged the phone into a small speaker. She pressed play. Marcus's voice first slightly muffled the phone in his pocket, the ambient sound of what I recognized as a restaurant's soft background music, the clink of glassware. "Victoria, I need to know the timeline. The transfers are done. Reed's account has everything we planned. When are we leaving? My noin sorely po pipo man besta." A pause. Then Victoria's voice, clear, unhurried, the voice I had heard for 28 years, delivering diagnoses and dinner plans and quiet, reasonable explanations for why I was wrong about my own body. Soon, there are a few things I need to finalize. What things you said, January? January is still the plan. Stop worrying, Marcus. You're very good at worrying. Another pause. Then, and I watched Marcus's face as this part played, watched the moment land on him, the way it had clearly landed on him the first time he heard it. Back Victoria's voice again, slightly lower, almost to herself, as though she had momentarily forgotten the presence of another person at the table. Marcus is useful, patient, predictable. He'll wait as long as I need him to. A beat. But Zurich is mine. That was always mine. He's not coming. He never was. The recording ended. The conference room was very quiet. Marcus Reed's face had gone the particular gray of a man looking at the ruins of something he had invested years in building. His attorney put a hand briefly on his arm. Marcus shook it off. She said it like I wasn't sitting across from her, Marcus said. His voice cracked on the last word, and he pressed his lips together hard. Like I was furniture, something to be arranged and then left behind. I looked at him across the table. I thought about what Claire had said months ago, that Marcus was as much a victim of this arrangement as I was, just in a different role. I had not fully believed it then. I believed it now. She does that, I said quietly. She makes you feel like the most important person in the room, right up until she doesn't need you anymore. Marcus looked at me startled. I think that I had offered him anything at all. His throat worked. He nodded once tightly and looked back down at the table. Sandra Cole closed the folder. She looked at me with the calm, assessing attention of someone who has built enough cases to know when the foundation is solid. Mr. Carter, she said, with Dr. Reed's cooperation, and this recording combined with everything Ms. Donovan has compiled, the notebook, the affidavit, the financial forensics, the altered medical records, I am confident we have one of the most thoroughly documented elder abuse and financial fraud cases this office has prosecuted in 20 years. She paused. I want to take this to trial. I want a jury to hear every piece of this. She looked at me steadily. But I need you on that stand. I need your testimony. Are you prepared for that? I thought about 41 months of clinical notations in a leather notebook. I thought about Margaret Sullivan's hand steady as she signed her name after 6 years of silence. I thought about Robert Ashford's faded shutters and his single geranium, and the look in his eyes when he said she discards them like files she no longer needs. I thought about Victoria's voice on that recording. He's not coming. He never was delivered with the same calm certainty she had used to tell me for 6 years that the pain in my chest was just old age. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. Cole nodded. She stood and extended her hand across the table. Then we go to trial, Mr. Carter. I shook it. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. I had built things for 41 years. Structures designed to hold weight, to last, to mean something about the civilization that produced them. I had walked through federal courthouses and county halls and municipal buildings all across Southern California, and I knew how public architecture is supposed to communicate authority. Los Angeles Superior Court Department 47 did communicate authority. It just did it quietly, the way real authority always does. Worn wood-high ceilings, the particular stillness of a room where consequential things have been happening for a very long time. Thomas sat on my left, Claire on my right. I had my hands in my lap and my back straight and my eyes on the door, through which Victoria would be brought in, and I was aware of my own heartbeat in a way I had not been since the morning I lay on Hayes's examination table and waited for the news that changed everything. The door opened. She came in between two court officers, her wrists unbound for the proceedings. Wearing a charcoal suit, I recognized she had bought it 3 years ago for a medical conference in San Diego. Her hair was precisely arranged. Her posture was impeccable. She looked like a department chief arriving at a board meeting, which I understood now was entirely intentional. Theodore Marsh walked at her shoulder, tall, silver-haired, the kind of expensive that it announces itself without trying. He had won 3 medical malpractice cases in the last 4 years, and his hourly rate was, according to Claire, enough to make most people reconsider the concept of justice as something available to everyone. Victoria walked to the defense table and sat down. She did not look at me, not once. Not when she entered, not when she settled into her chair, not when Marsh leaned close to review something in his notes. I had been prepared for anger, for defiance, for that cool gray assessment I had lived under for 28 years. I had not been prepared for the specific cruelty of being treated as though I did not exist in a room I had fought for 8 months to enter. Thomas put his hand on my forearm. I did not move. Judge Howard Brennan entered. We rose. He was in his early 60s with the deliberate, unhurried manner of someone who has presided over enough proceedings to know that patience is not a virtue in this room, but a tool. He took his seat, adjusted his glasses, and looked at the file in front of him, with the focused attention of a man reading something for the first time that he already fully understands. State of California versus Victoria. Ann Carter, he said. Case number 2025 CF 8847. This proceeding will address arraignment on 6 felony counts and preliminary hearing motions. He looked at the defense table. Mr. Marsh. Marsh stood. Theodore Marsh for the defense, Your Honor. Dr. Carter enters a plea of not guilty on all 6 counts. Noted. Brennan looked at Cole. Ms. Cole, the state will read the charges. Sandra Cole stood and opened her folder. Her voice was level and unhurried, and she read each count with the precision of someone who has been building toward this moment for months and intends to make every word of it land. Count 1, elder abuse under California Penal Code, Section 368. The defendant did willfully and with intent cause physical and financial harm to Daniel Carter, age 68, through sustained medical manipulation and financial control. She paused 1 beat. Maximum penalty 4 years per count consecutive. Count 2, medical battery under California Penal Code, Section 242. The defendant did intentionally cause harmful physical contact with Daniel Carter through surgical implantation of a cardiac monitoring device without informed consent. Count 3, grand theft under California Penal Code, Section 487. The defendant did unlawfully take property valued in excess of $340,000 from Daniel Carter through unauthorized wire transfers. Count 4, wire fraud under 18 United States Code, Section 1343. The defendant did execute a scheme to defraud using interstate wire communications, specifically 52 electronic fund transfers crossing state and international lines. Count 5, falsification of medical records under California Penal Code, Section 471.5. The defendant did knowingly alter official medical documentation to conceal the nature of a surgical procedure performed on Daniel Carter. Count 6, financial elder abuse with intent to defraud under California Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 1561030. The defendant did engage in a sustained pattern of financial exploitation targeting a dependent adult. Cole closed the folder. The state requests the defendant be held without bail pending trial, Your Honor, on the grounds of demonstrated flight risk, specifically the existence of a foreign bank account containing in excess of $1.2 million and documented plans to relocate internationally prior to the date of arrest. Marsh was on his feet before Cole had fully sat down. Your Honor, my client is a 30-year practitioner with deep roots in this community. She has surrendered her passport. The so-called foreign account is part of a legitimate financial planning arrangement that will be fully explained at trial. Bail is appropriate. Brennan looked at him over the top of his glasses for a moment that lasted slightly longer than it needed to. Bail is set at $1 million, cash or bond, Brennan said. Passport remains surrendered. GPS monitoring required if released. He made a note. Trial date November 17th. Pre-trial motions due November 3rd. He looked at both tables. Is there anything else at this time? Marsh stepped forward. Your Honor, the defense would like to raise a preliminary matter regarding the admissibility of certain personal journals alleged to belong to my client. We contend that these documents— Save it for the motions, briefed Mr. Marsh, Brennan said without looking up. November 3rd. Marsh sat. As the session ended and the court officers moved to escort Victoria back through the side door, something made me look up at exactly the wrong moment, or the right one, depending on how you measure these things. She turned her head. Not toward Marsh, not toward the gallery, not toward the judge. Toward me. And for one moment, 3 seconds, maybe 4. Victoria Carter looked at me across a courtroom, in the way she had once looked at me, across a kitchen table and a bedroom, in the dark, and 28 years of a shared life with those calm, assessing eyes that I now understood had never been seeing what I believed they were seeing. She did not look afraid. She looked And this was the thing that stayed with me long after the session had ended, and Thomas had steered me out through the corridor, and Claire had flagged a cab on Temple Street. She looked calculating, even now, even here, as though she was still running numbers, still measuring odds, still looking for the angle that would change the outcome. The court officer touched her arm. She turned away. Thomas said something beside me that I did not hear. "Dad," he said it again, his hand on my shoulder. "Let's go. We've got work to do." I took a breath. I turned from the door. "Yeah," I said, "we do." The trial had been running for 4 days when Sandra Cole stood up, walked to the evidence table, and picked up the notebook. It was the same notebook I had held in my hands in Victoria's office at 2 in the morning. Dark brown leather, no label, the kind of object that looks entirely ordinary until you know what is written inside it. Cole carried it to the podium with both hands as though it had weight beyond its physical dimensions, which in every meaningful sense it did. "Your Honor," she said, "the state would like to read into the record selected entries from People's Exhibit 14, the personal journal recovered from the defendant's home office safe." Marsh was on his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. The defense has already noted our position that these entries constitute private reflection and should not overruled." Brennan did not look up from his notes. "The court has already ruled on admissibility, Mr. Marsh. Sit down." Marsh sat. His jaw was tight. Beside him, Victoria looked straight ahead at the far wall, her hands folded on the table. Her expression the one I had come to think of as her professional face, the face she wore when delivering a diagnosis, she had already decided the patient was going to accept. Cole opened the notebook to the first marked page. "Month 1, she read. Her voice was level and clear, carrying to every corner of the courtroom without effort. "January 2020. D shows early signs of increased dependency following the April procedure. Fatigue complaints are consistent with projected timeline. Medical authority remains unquestioned. Initial phase proceeding as planned. I watched the jury. 12 people, 7 women, 5 men ranging from their late 20s to their early 70s. Several of them were writing. Several had stopped writing and were looking at Victoria." Cole turned the page. "Month 14, February 2021. Fatigue complaints increasing. Dependency on my schedule and judgment has deepened. Subject resistant to outside social engagements. Isolation from Thomas proceeding naturally." Thomas beside me drew a sharp breath. I felt it more than heard it, the specific sound of someone absorbing a blow they knew was coming, but still hurt when it landed. Cole kept reading. "Month 22, October 2021. Subject mentioned wanting a second opinion on cardiac symptoms. Redirected. Subject accepted explanation without resistance. Month 38, February 2023. Subject attempted to schedule appointment with outside physician. Intervention successful. Subject did not follow through." The courtroom was very still. The air conditioning hummed. Someone in the gallery shifted in their seat. Cole turned to the final page. She paused, not for drama, not performing anything, just reading ahead to orient herself before she read aloud. Then she looked up at the jury for one moment before she looked back down at the page. "Phase 4, she read. "Incapacity filing, target December 2025, a beat. Financial transfer to Cascade Pacific LLC complete. POA documents prepared." Another beat. The pause of someone letting the next words have their proper space. "D will sign when presented." She stopped. The courtroom waited. "He always does," Cole said. She closed the notebook. She did not say anything else. She did not need to. She walked back to the prosecution table and sat down in the silence she had made, and the silence did the rest of the work. It lasted perhaps 4 seconds. Then Victoria Carter stood up. She did not ask to speak. She did not raise her hand, did not address the bench, did not look at Marsh, who was already reaching for her arm. She simply stood with the particular physicality of someone whose body has made a decision before their mind has fully ratified it. And she spoke into the courtroom in a voice I had not heard from her before, not the calm clinical register, not the warm marital one, but something rawer and less controlled, something that had been compressed for a very long time under a great deal of pressure. "He needed me." Her voice filled the room completely. "Everything he has, the house, the savings, the stability, all of it exists because I managed it, because I managed him. He was never capable of—" "Dr. Carter," Brennan's voice cut across hers like a blade. "Sit down. I protected him." Her voice rose cracking at the upper edge. For 28 years, I protected him from his own decisions, from his own... Dr. Carter, sit down now. Marsh had her arm. She pulled against it not violently, but with the focused resistance of someone who has spent a lifetime not being interrupted and does not know how to process it when it happens. Her face was flushed. A strand of hair had come loose from its arrangement and lay across her cheek, and she did not push it away. He would have been nothing, she said. Bailiff. Brennan said it once quietly. The bailiff moved. Marsh pulled harder. Victoria sat not because she chose to, but because the mechanics of the room required it, because 3 people were physically exerting themselves to put her back in her chair, because even Victoria Carter could not override the accumulated authority of a courtroom when it decided she was finished speaking. The silence that followed was different from the one Cole had made. It had texture to it. It had weight. I could feel it pressing against the back of my neck and across my shoulders and in my chest, in the place where the cardiac recorder used to be. I looked at the jury. All 12 of them were looking at Victoria, not with the polite evaluative attention of people performing civic duty. With the focused, unguarded attention of 12 people who have just seen something they were not fully expecting to see, who have just watched a mask come off in real time in a room they are responsible for, and who are now processing what was underneath it. One woman in the second row, mid-50s, reading glasses pushed up into her hair. A yellow notepad on her knee had stopped writing entirely. She was looking at Victoria with an expression I could not name precisely, but recognized immediately as the expression you wear when something you suspected has been confirmed beyond the possibility of doubt. Thomas leaned close to me. His voice was very low. Dad, he said, she just lost. I did not answer. I kept my eyes on the jury and felt something move through my chest that was not the tightness, not the pressure, not the 6 years of symptoms that a device had manufactured in the dark. It was something else, something I had almost forgotten the shape of. Outside the courthouse an hour later, with the afternoon sun coming down hard and flat on Temple Street, and Claire walking 3 paces ahead of us, already on her phone, Thomas stopped on the sidewalk and turned to me. Tomorrow you're on that stand, he said. I know. He looked at me for a long moment, my son, 40 years old, who had tried to tell me so many times and had waited with more patience than I deserved for me to be ready to hear it. Say everything, he said. Don't protect her, don't soften it. Say all of it. I nodded. All of it, I said. Robert Ashford testified first by video link from a conference room in Greenwich, Connecticut. The screen at the front of the courtroom showed him in a dark jacket sitting very straight, his hands folded on a table that was not visible. The connection was clear. His voice carried without distortion. He looked like what he was, a man who had been asked to do a difficult thing and had decided after a long time of not deciding anything of the kind that he was going to do it well. Cole walked him through it methodically. The marriage, 1988 to 1995. The financial control. The gradual erosions of his confidence. The way Victoria had built a case against his competence before he had any idea a case was being built. The divorce and what it had cost him. Mr. Ashford. Cole said, in your experience of being married to Dr. Carter, did she ever express concern for your well-being that later turned out to serve a different purpose? Robert was quiet for a moment. Everything she expressed concern about served a different purpose, he said. I just didn't understand that until afterward. And when you look at what has been documented in Mr. Carter's case, the medical manipulation, the financial transfers, the preparation of incompetency paperwork, do you recognize a pattern? Yes, Robert said. I recognize all of it. Marsh cross-examined, briefly suggesting Robert's testimony was motivated by bitterness that a divorce 30 years ago could not reliably establish a pattern, that he had his own financial grievances that colored his perception. Robert answered each question with the same flat, unhurried steadiness. He did not become defensive. He did not raise his voice. He simply said what was true and let Marsh's suggestions fall where they fell. When Robert's testimony ended, Cole stood again. The state calls Daniel Carter. I stood up. Thomas put his hand briefly on my shoulder, just for a moment, pressure and release, the way you steady something before you let it go. I walked to the witness stand, raised my right hand, and swore to tell the truth. The truth. After 8 months of careful silence and strategic patience, and the daily performance of not knowing what I knew, I was finally being asked in a room designed for exactly this purpose to simply say what was real. I sat down. Cole began with the straightforward chronology. When the symptoms began, how long I had managed them, on Victoria's guidance, what Hayes had found in March. She was systematic and unhurried, building the foundation carefully before she put any weight on it. I answered each question fully, and without elaboration the way I used to give testimony to building inspectors, factual, sequential, nothing withheld and nothing added. Then Marsh stood for cross-examination. He approached the stand with the relaxed confidence of someone who has done this 1,000 times and believes he is about to do it well again. "Mr. Carter," he said, "you've described a marriage of 28 years, during which your wife, a licensed physician, managed your health care. Isn't it possible that what you experienced as control was simply care?" "No," I said. He paused, not expecting the shortness of it. "Could you elaborate?" "Care doesn't require secrecy," I said. "Care doesn't require altering records. Care doesn't involve writing monthly progress reports about your husband using the word subject." A small sound from the gallery. Marsh pressed forward. "Mr. Carter, you've acknowledged that you signed the consent form for the 2019 procedure. You signed it voluntarily without duress as an adult." "No." "I signed a form I was handed by the person I trusted most," I said. "A form that did not mention what would be done to me. Signing something you've been deceived about is not consent. It's the mechanism of the deception." Marsh changed direction. "You've stated that you felt controlled, but isn't it true that in a marriage, particularly one involving a medical professional, some degree of deference to the partner with medical expertise is normal?" "Deference, yes," I said. "What she did was not deference. It was the systematic removal of my ability to make any decision about my own health and my own finances without her approval or interference." I kept my voice even. I had promised Thomas I would say all of it, and I was saying all of it, and I was going to keep saying it for as long as the room required. I was a structural engineer for 41 years. I built things designed to hold weight. I know the difference between a load-bearing wall and a cage. What she built around me was a cage. Marsh looked at me for a moment, reassessing, I thought, whether the line of questioning was helping him. He decided it was not. "No further questions," he said. Cole stood for redirect. She walked to the podium and looked at me. "Mr. Carter," she said, "is there anything you'd like to say to this court in your own words about what the last 8 months have meant to you?" I had not been told she was going to ask that. I had not prepared an answer. I looked at my hands for a moment, then looked up, not at Victoria, not at the jury, but at the middle distance, the place you look when you're speaking something true that you've been carrying for a long time. "For 41 years, I said I built things meant to last. Bridges, parking structures, a hospital wing in Pasadena that is still standing. I built them to hold weight to serve people to outlast the conditions they were built in." I paused. "When I got married, I thought I was building something like that. Something with a foundation, something real." Another pause. "I did not know that what I was building for was designed to collapse the moment I was no longer useful to the person I was building it with." The courtroom was very still. Judge Brennan did not reach for his gavel. He looked at me over the top of his glasses and said quietly, "Thank you, Mr. Carter. You may step down." I stepped down. I walked back to my seat and sat beside Thomas, and he put his arm around my shoulders and held it there, and I let him. And for a moment I did not think about the jury or the verdict or what came next. I thought about a bridge I had designed in 1987 that crossed a dry riverbed in the San Gabriel Valley, and how it was still there, and how it had held every load that had ever been placed on it, and how some things, if you build them right, do not come down. Then I looked up, and I looked at the jury, and one by one, in the way that juries do when they have stopped evaluating and started deciding, they looked back. The jury was out for 4 hours and 11 minutes. Thomas and I sat on a bench in the corridor outside Department 47, not talking much, not needing to. Claire paced at the far end of the hall with her phone. I held a cup of coffee that went cold sometime around noon and did not notice until much later. At 1:53, Claire's phone rang. 4 seconds. "Thank you." She ended the call and walked toward us. "They're back," she said. The foreperson was a woman in her early 60s, silver-haired, composed. She held the verdict form with both hands. When the jury filed in, not one of them looked at Victoria. I pressed my palms flat against my thighs and held still. "On the charge of elder abuse under California Penal Code, Section 368, Guilty. Thomas's hand closed over my forearm so hard I felt each finger separately. On the charge of medical battery under California Penal Code, Section 242, guilty. Claire exhaled slowly beside me. On the charge of grand theft under California Penal Code, Section 487, guilty. Victoria's folded hands tightened on the table. Her knuckles went white, then, with visible effort, released. On the charge of wire fraud under 18 United States Code, Section 1343, guilty. On the charge of falsification of medical records under California Penal Code, Section 471.5, guilty. On the charge of financial elder abuse with intent to defraud under California Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 15610-30, guilty. 6 counts. 6 times. Thomas let go of my arm. He pressed both hands over his face, his shoulders shaking once twice, then lowered them, blinked hard at the ceiling, and looked back at me with wet eyes and a steady jaw. "Dad." His voice broke on the word, and he did not try to fix it. I put my arm around my son and held him, and did not say anything, because there was nothing left to say that the last 8 months had not already said. 2 weeks later, Judge Brennan looked at Victoria across the bench. Dr. Victoria Ann Carter. He said, "You used your medical education, your professional authority, and your position as a spouse to systematically deprive another person of his health, his finances, and his autonomy, deliberately, methodically, over years." A pause. "And you documented it in your own hand. That suggests a confidence in your own impunity that this court finds extraordinary." Victoria sat perfectly still. Her face showed nothing. On the state counts, elder abuse, medical battery, grand theft, falsification of records, and financial elder abuse, the court sentences the defendant to 16 years at the California Institution for Women at Chowchilla. Brennan paused. On the federal wire fraud count under 18 United States Code, Section 1343, the defendant is sentenced to 8 years at a federal facility designated by the Bureau of Prisons to be served consecutively. No eligibility for early release on the federal count. He looked up. Total sentence 24 years. Your medical license is permanently revoked, effective immediately. Your name will be reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank. The bailiff moved. Victoria stood without being prompted, still composed, still carrying herself with that particular authority. As they guided her toward the side door, she stopped, turned her head, looked at me. I did not look away. I looked at the woman who had handed me coffee every morning for 28 years, managed my prescriptions, told me my pain was just old age, and written my name above the word subject in a locked notebook, and I held her gaze, and what I felt was not anger, not grief, not forgiveness. It was clarity. The door closed. She was gone. Outside November, light fell clean and cold on Temple Street. Thomas walked beside me down the courthouse steps, hands in his pockets, shoulder almost touching mine. "Where do you want to go?" he asked. I looked at the street. Los Angeles moved around us, enormous and indifferent, entirely unconcerned with what had just happened inside that building. "Brooklyn," I said. "I want to go home." Thomas smiled, tired, real, the smile of someone who has been waiting a long time for the right answer. "Let's go," he said. The apartment was on the 4th floor of a building on Garfield Place in Park Slope, Brooklyn. 3 rooms, hardwood floors, a radiator that knocked and hissed in the night, and 2 windows in the main room that looked out over the bare December trees of the street below. It was smaller than any space I had lived in since my 20s. It was the first place in almost 30 years that was entirely unambiguously mine. I moved in on a Saturday in late November. Thomas carried boxes up the stairs and argued with me about which drawer the silverware should go in, and stayed for dinner and left at 9 o'clock. And when the door closed behind him, the apartment was quiet in the way that new spaces are quiet, not empty, just waiting to become familiar. I stood at the window for a long time that first night, looking at the street below. A man walked a dog. 2 women passed under the yellow cone of a streetlight, talking, their breath visible in the cold. A cab turned the corner and was gone. I was still alive. That was the first thing. I was 68 years old, and I was still alive, and I was standing in an apartment in Brooklyn where no one was monitoring my symptoms or managing my prescriptions or writing clinical notations about my dependency levels in a leather notebook in a locked safe. I was in pain that was healing rather than pain that was manufactured. I was tired in the way of someone who has been through something hard, not in the way of someone being made tired from the inside. It felt cautiously and incompletely like being well. The court had returned $340,000 from the Cascade Pacific accounts within 60 days of sentencing. The criminal restitution order added $280,000. The Zurich account, $1.2 million, was still being processed through the Emalat Treaty with Switzerland, a procedure that would take months and possibly longer. But Claire was confident it would come. I did not need it yet. I had enough. For the first time in a long time, I had enough. I sold the Los Angeles house in early December. The escrow closed on a Thursday, and Claire called me with the final number, and I sat at the kitchen table in Brooklyn with the phone in my hand and felt nothing in particular about it. Not relief, not grief, not the dramatic finality I might have expected. It was just a number. The house was just a building. What had happened inside it was what mattered, and what had happened inside it was finished. I started writing in December. Not a journal I had seen enough of what journals could become in the wrong hands. A blog public under my own name. I called it What I Built. The first post was about the 18 months between when I first noticed something was wrong and when I walked into Hayes' office in Manhattan, about the specific texture of not being believed by the person who is supposed to know you best, about how that kind of doubt gets into the joints of a person and makes it hard to move. 3,000 people read it in the first week. The trial had been covered by the Los Angeles Times and 2 national outlets. I had not anticipated that anyone beyond that coverage would find their way to a retired engineer's blog. I was not prepared for that. Thomas was not surprised. "People know this feeling, Dad," he said when he called. "More than you think." On the 28th of December, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. "Mr. Carter." The voice was quiet and a little worn at the edges, a voice I recognized immediately even though I had only heard it once. "It's Robert Ashford. I hope it's all right that I'm calling." "Of course it is," I said. I was sitting in the armchair by the window, a book open in my lap that I had not been reading. Outside, the first snow of the season was beginning to fall, tentative, exploratory, the kind of snow that is still making up its mind. "How are you, Robert?" "Better," he said. "Watching the news, reading what you've been writing." A pause. "It's good. What you're doing is good." "I learned from watching what happened to you," I said. "You gave me something to understand. I don't know if I ever said that properly." "You don't have to." Another pause, longer this time. The pause of someone deciding whether to say the next thing. "Daniel, there's something I didn't tell you when we met. I didn't think the time was right." I closed the book. "Tell me now?" Before me, Robert said there was another man. His name was Gerald Warren. After my divorce, I spent 2 years trying to understand what had happened to me. That's when I found him through court records, old filings. He had tried to report her and nobody listened. He was a contractor, built things like you. She was with him from 1998 to 2002, just after she finished her residency. Same pattern. Medical control this time, because by then she had the tools for it. He tried to fight back when he understood what had happened. Robert's voice dropped slightly. No one believed him. A husband against a doctor. He had nothing left by the time it was over. A pause. He died in 2019, alone in a rented room in Newark. He was 63 years old. The snow outside the window was falling more steadily now, settling on the branches of the December trees, covering the sidewalk below, in a thin, quiet white. I thought about Gerald Warren, 63 years old, a rented room in Newark alone. I thought about what it must have been like to carry the truth of what had been done to you and have no one believe it, to go through the end of your life holding something that heavy with no one to help you set it down. My throat tightened. I pressed my thumb and forefinger against the bridge of my nose for a moment and breathed. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry no one listened to him." "I am too," Robert said. "I've been sorry about it for a long time." He paused. "But Daniel, I'm telling you this because you need to understand something. Gerald tried and failed. I tried and failed. He stopped. When he continued, his voice had something in it that had not been there when we sat in his living room in Greenwich. Something lighter. Something almost like relief. "You're the first one who actually won. You're the first one who made it matter." The snow fell. The radiator knocked softly in the corner. Somewhere down the block, a door opened and closed, and a child's voice rose briefly and was gone. I thought about Gerald Warren. I thought about Robert in his house with the faded shutters and the single geranium that someone was watering, because some things are worth keeping alive. I thought about Margaret Sullivan signing her name at a kitchen table after 6 years of silence. I thought about Thomas on a hospital bench in Manhattan, waiting, showing up, not giving up. I thought about a bridge I built in 1987 over a dry riverbed in the San Gabriel Valley that was still standing. Then let's make sure people know how, I said. Robert made a sound, not quite a laugh, but close. The sound of a man who has been carrying something a long time and has just felt it lighten by a fraction. Yes, he said. Let's do that. We talked for another 20 minutes, small things, practical things, the logistics of how his testimony might be used in the ongoing civil case, whether he would be willing to speak publicly about his own experience. He said yes to both. When we said goodbye, it was the goodbye of people who intend to speak again. I set the phone on the arm of the chair and looked out at the snow. It was falling in earnest now, thick and steady, the kind of snowfall that commits. The street below was white and quiet and very still, and the trees had gone from bare December branches to something that looked briefly in the yellow light of the street lamps like the kind of thing you'd build a life around. I opened my laptop. The blog was on the screen, what I built, the cursor, blinking at the end of the last sentence I had written. I had spent 41 years building things meant to last. Bridges, buildings, structures designed to hold weight and serve people and outlast the conditions they were built in. I was 68 years old. I was in a small apartment in Brooklyn with a knocking radiator and 2 windows that looked out at the snow. I had a son who showed up. I had work to do. I had, against everything that had been done, to try to prevent it a future. She took 30 years. She did not take what came next. I put my hands on the keyboard and began to write. Looking back, I realized this was never just a family story about a marriage gone wrong. It was a story about how trust, the deepest kind, the kind you build over decades, can be used as a weapon by the very person you handed it to. I spent 28 years believing that love meant never questioning the person beside you. I was wrong. Love without accountability is not love. It is a door left unlocked. I believe God placed Dr. Hayes, Claire Thomas, and Margaret in my path at exactly the right moments. Not because I deserved it, but because no one should have to fight this alone. And they made sure I didn't. This is a family betrayal that cost me 30 years. So here's what I want to say to anyone watching. Don't be like me. Read what you sign, see your own doctor, trust your pain. Your body does not lie to you, but people sometimes do. Every family story has chapters we wish we could rewrite. This one taught me that it is never too late to turn the page. And this family betrayal, as painful as it was, gave me something she never planned, to the truth. If something in this story stayed with you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd be honored to have you here for what comes next. Thank you for staying until the very end. A note: some elements in our stories are fictionalized for educational purposes. If this type of content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit you, and we respect that completely.